Have you ever stopped to think that sometimes a single word can wound more than silence, that on one's deathbed what we say or fail to say can become a burden that the other person carries with them forever? Maybe you don't think so, but there are words that should never be spoken to someone who is facing their own farewell. Words that, instead of relieving, tighten the heart even more. Carl Jung, the great master of psychology, left a final lesson that seems to have been made precisely for this moment, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Perhaps you've already had the experience of accompanying someone in their final days of life. Or maybe you fear that moment, which sooner or later may come with someone close, or even with you. What should one say in the face of the inevitable? What truly brings comfort? That's where the danger lies. Often, due to nervousness, fear, or even good intentions, people say things that should never be uttered. Jung's last lesson wasn't a phrase memorized from books, nor a complicated theory. It was a simple, almost whispered revelation that life only finds peace when we manage to accept it entirely until the last moment, without denying death. Farewell words, therefore, need to help the other person accept and not flee, feel smaller or guilty for leaving. And this is where the 7 words that should never be pronounced before an elderly person on the verge of death emerge. But wait a minute. Before revealing them, I need to make a pact with you. This video isn't just about what not to say. It's about something much bigger. How to give dignity to someone in their final moments. How to transform minutes into eternity. How not to carry for the rest of your life the regret of having said the wrong thing at the wrong time. If you stay with me until the end, you will not only know these 7 forbidden words, but also discover what should truly be said in their place. That is the promise. Think with me. Why are we so afraid of silence in the face of death? Often the impulse is to fill the void with clichés, with hurried advice, with a forced hope that convinces no one. It's as if we tried to block the sun with our hands. But Jung reminds us, what we resist persists. When we resist death, when we try to deny it with words, we only make it more frightening for the person who is leaving. Imagine an elderly person on their bed. Their body already tired, their breathing shallow. They don't need speeches. They don't need illusions. They need presence. And yet, it is at this moment that many blurt out phrases that unknowingly sound like a condemnation. These phrases are the opposite of comfort. They steal peace. One of these words, for example, is strong. It seems harmless, doesn't it? How many times do we hear, "You are strong, you will overcome this"? But think carefully. For someone who knows that death is approaching, this word sounds like a demand. It's as if we were saying, don't give up, don't falter. And the elderly person, who perhaps only wants to rest, feels pressured, as if they are disappointing their family by simply surrendering to the natural cycle of life. Do you perceive the hidden cruelty there? Another dangerous word is fight. Keep fighting. But against what? Against nature itself? Against time? This word creates an impossible war to win. And worse, it makes the elderly person believe that if they stop fighting, they will be failing. It's a psychological trap that poisons the last days with the idea of defeat. Jung taught us that death is not an enemy, it is the other half of life. Saying fight is to deny this truth. And notice how these words, strong, fight, seem full of courage, but deep down they reveal the fear of those who speak them. It's more about us than about the other person. It's our panic in the face of loss that speaks, not the real desire for comfort. The elderly person feels this, and they feel alone, misunderstood. Perhaps now you are thinking, but I have said things like that to someone. Did I cause pain? That question hurts, I know, but it is also liberating, because there is still time. There are still people who will need you at that moment, and now you can be prepared. Jung said that the greatest tragedy of the human being is to live without becoming whole. On a deathbed, wholeness means being able to rest, without demands, without illusions. So every word we offer someone at that time should be like a mirror that reflects dignity, and not like a weight that adds to the burden. You're starting to understand, aren't you? The 7 forbidden words are not just isolated vocables. They are symbols of something greater, Society's fear of looking at death naturally. That's why we say things that push the elderly into a non-existent struggle, or that hide the truth under clichés. But Jung shows us another way, that of acceptance. I'm not going to reveal all 7 yet. That will become clear throughout our conversation. But I can guarantee one thing. Each of them will make you deeply rethink the way you deal with death, perhaps even the way you deal with life. Because deep down, the words we address to those who are leaving are also a reflection of the words we carry within ourselves. And if you've stayed with me this far, you've already realized, we're not just talking about avoiding mistakes. We're talking about a lesson that can change the way you look at your own finitude, because one day, inevitably, you too will face that silence, and you will wish that beside you there are not wrong words, but rather the right presence. Do you remember I mentioned the word strong and also the word fight? Well, they already show us how, even with good intentions, we can imprison someone in an invisible burden. But these are just the first 2. There are still 5 other words that seem small, but carry enormous emotional consequences, and it is into them that we need to delve now. The 3rd word is get better. How many times do we hear someone say, almost instinctively, "You'll get better, this will pass soon"? It seems like a gesture of hope, doesn't it? But for someone who already knows that farewell is near, this word is a cruel denial. It turns death into a failure, as if the elderly person is failing by not improving. Jung warned us, denying reality is like trying to hold water between your fingers. It slips away. And when we use get better in this context, we are not helping, just masking. Imagine being in a hospital room. You already know that time is short. And then someone comes in and says, "You'll get better." How does that sound? Like a lie, like an invitation to pretend that nothing is happening. But the elderly person doesn't want to pretend. They want truth. They want to know that they can rest in peace without having to maintain the illusion of a tomorrow that will not come. This word robs the authenticity of the moment. The 4th word is don't. It seems too simple to be on this list, but it's one of the most dangerous. Don't think about it. Don't cry. Don't be afraid. Have you noticed how don't tries to forbid feelings? It's as if we were saying, what you feel is wrong. It's better to keep quiet. Jung insisted that what is repressed turns into a shadow. So when we forbid an elderly person from expressing their pain, their sadness, or even their anger, we are leaving them alone with a huge shadow in their last moments of life. Don't silences. Don't suffocates. Don't prevents the soul from finding relief. And here an important reflection arises. Why are we so afraid to allow the other person to express their pain? Perhaps because we ourselves don't know how to deal with our own. So instead of listening, we try to control. Instead of embracing, we try to correct. But someone who is facing death doesn't need to be corrected. They need to be heard. Now let's move on to the 5th word. Wrong. This word often appears indirectly in phrases like, "You didn't do anything wrong, don't blame yourself." At first glance it seems comforting, but think carefully. By saying this, we are, in a way, bringing the idea of error into the room. It's as if we reminded the elderly person that they could, in fact, have made a mistake, and now needs to be absolved. This puts them in a position of judgment. Jung said that human beings should not be reduced to their right or wrong, but understood as a whole. To speak of wrong at this moment is to reduce an entire life to a courtroom. The 6th word is soon. How many times do we hear someone say, "But it's too soon for you to go"? It's a phrase loaded with pain, I know. But for the elderly person, it sounds like an accusation. It's as if they were saying, "You are abandoning us before your time." This word brings guilt. And the last thing someone needs to feel when dying is guilt. Jung reminded us that the time of life does not follow the logic of our clock. Each existence is fulfilled at the right moment, even if it doesn't seem so to us. When we say soon, we only reveal our difficulty in accepting. And we come to the 7th word, perhaps the heaviest of all, never. I'll never get over it. I'll never forget your pain. Nothing will ever be the same again. It seems like a way to express love and attachment. But for someone who is leaving, hearing the word never is an immense burden. It's as if we were saying your death will forever destroy our life, and the elderly person, already fragile, feels responsible for the pain that will remain. Jung said that true farewell should not imprison but liberate. Never is a prison. Now that we have revealed the 7 words, strong, fight, get better, don't, wrong, soon, and never, perhaps you are wondering, so, what should we say instead? That is the big question. Because it's not enough to just be silent. Silence is powerful, yes, but there are times when the right word can open a window of light. But before I show you these alternatives, I need you to understand one fundamental thing. These forbidden words are not just language errors, they are reflections of an entire culture that does not know how to deal with death. We live trying to hide, to disguise, to postpone. We don't talk about it at the table, we don't include it in family conversations, we don't face it head on. So when it arrives, we are caught unprepared, and we try to improvise with cliches. And it is precisely this improvisation that hurts. Carl Jung saw death not as an enemy, but as the crowning of life. For him, aging was not an accident, but a phase of integration. Every wrinkle, every memory, every physical pain was part of a process of returning to the essence. And to deny this process with ill-chosen words is to steal the elderly person's opportunity to reconcile with themselves. Think with me. If an elderly person hears fight, they feel they need to resist the natural flow. If they hear get better, they feel they need to pretend. If they hear don't, they feel they cannot express themselves. If they hear soon, they feel they have disappointed. If they hear never, they feel guilty for the suffering of others. And so, the words that should comfort turn into invisible chains. But there's good news. The same mouth that can imprison can also liberate. And this is where the second part of our journey begins, discovering what words truly bring relief. Words that Jung would call integration. Because what the elderly person needs most deep down is permission to be whole until the last moment. Before we move on, I want to invite you. If this video has already brought important reflections for you, consider subscribing to the channel. Not just to receive more content like this, but to be part of a community that seeks meaning, that wants to look at life and death with honesty and courage. By subscribing, you lose nothing, and at the same time support the continuation of these conversations that we rarely find elsewhere. So far, we've talked about the words that hurt, and we've seen how, often without realizing it, we can fill an elderly person's heart with burden instead of relief. But now the most important moment has arrived, discovering what to really say. Because it's not enough to be silent, it's also necessary to offer presence, warmth, and when needed, the right word. Carl Jung said that language is a mirror of the soul. What we say not only communicates, but shapes the other person's experience. Therefore, the choice of words at the time of farewell is not a detail. It is essential. They are what can transform fear into peace, loneliness into connection, despair into surrender. So if instead of strong and fight, we say, I am with you, the difference is brutal. This small phrase demands nothing from the other person. It doesn't force them to resist, nor to feign bravery. It simply guarantees presence. The elderly person doesn't need to be a hero. They just need to feel that they are not alone. And I am with you creates precisely that invisible embrace. Instead of get better, the right phrase is, it's okay to rest. Do you perceive the difference? One denies reality, the other accepts it. One creates pressure, the other offers permission. Jung insisted that aging should be a process of reconciling with limits. To say it's okay to rest is to free the person from the obligation to pretend. It's like opening a window and letting the air in. And what about don't? Do you remember the danger that word carries? Well, the key here is to replace it with you can feel. Simple, direct, but liberating. You can feel afraid. You can cry. You can say whatever you want. This can restores dignity. Because there are no wrong feelings at the time of death. All are legitimate. And giving this permission is perhaps the greatest gift anyone can receive. In place of wrong, the right phrase is, your life had meaning. Do you realize how that changes everything? Wrong puts the elderly person on trial, but your life had meaning gives them what we need most at the end, a seal of significance. Jung believed that human beings only find peace when they feel that their story was not in vain. This simple, honest phrase closes the circle, and about soon. The cure for this word is acceptance. Your time has come. It's not easy to say because it demands humility from us in the face of mystery. But this phrase is powerful. It shows the elderly person that their life was not interrupted but completed, that nothing was left unfinished, even if it seems soon to us. It aligns the human experience with the greater rhythm of existence. Finally, instead of never, the phrase that liberates is, I will carry you with me. See the difference. Never imprisons one in the weight of absence. But I will carry you with me recognizes that that life does not disappear. It merely transforms into living memory. The elderly person does not feel guilty because they understand that their legacy will continue. Jung said that every soul leaves seeds. By saying this, we are acknowledging the seed that will remain. If you notice, all these phrases have something in common. Instead of demanding, they liberate. Instead of denying, they accept. Instead of imprisoning, they connect. They are words of integration, not division. And integration, for Jung, was the great task of old age. Now imagine an elderly person in bed hearing these phrases. I am with you. It's okay to rest. You can feel. Your life had meaning. Your time has come. I will carry you with me. Notice the impact. It's as if each word removed a weight from their shoulders, as if each one were a step leading to peace. And in the end, the silence that accompanies these phrases becomes sacred. But perhaps you're thinking, what if I don't know what to say? What if I freeze? The truth is, most of the time we don't need grand speeches. Silence, when full of presence, speaks louder than any words. Jung said that the soul recognizes authenticity. So even a simple hand holding another can carry more truth than 100 beautiful phrases. Still, keeping these alternatives in mind is essential, because nervousness easily leads us to automatic responses, to the forbidden words we've already discussed. And it's in those moments that remembering these phrases can be the difference between leaving a wound or leaving peace. I want you to think of a specific person now, perhaps a father, a mother, a friend, or even yourself in the future. Imagine them hearing fight. Now imagine them hearing, it's okay to rest. Did you feel the difference? That's the power of the right word. It changes the atmosphere of the room, changes the breathing, even changes how the soul crosses the final threshold. And here's a hard but necessary truth. All of us will one day be on one of these two sides. Either we will be the ones accompanying, or we will be the ones departing. Knowing which words to use is therefore an act of preparation. It is learning not just to say goodbye, but to live with more awareness. Because how we face death also shapes how we face life. Jung believed that death was not an end, but a transition. For him, the human soul carries within itself a continuity. So, the task of the companion is not to hold the other by force, but to allow them to cross with serenity. The right words are like a boat that helps one cross the river. Now tell me, do you realize how this lesson changes everything? We are not just talking about psychology nor beautiful phrases. We are talking about a human legacy, about how we can give the other person what is perhaps the greatest gift, the freedom to go in peace. But there is still one more issue we need to face, and what happens to us, the ones who remain? Because after all, it is we who carry the memory, the longing, the absence. And if we don't take care of that, we can turn the farewell into a prison for ourselves too. Up to this point, we have traversed a delicate path. We identified the words that wound, we learned the ones that heal. But something essential is still missing. Understanding what happens to those who stay behind. Because after all, when someone departs, it is not just their life that changes. Ours transforms as well. And often we are the ones who carry the greatest pains. Jung said that death is not just a biological event, it is also a psychological event. Every loss confronts us with our own finitude, and what do we do in the face of this? Often we try to escape, we deny it, or we drown in guilt, thinking about what we could have done or said differently. That is why this last lesson is so necessary. It speaks not only to those who are dying, but also to those who continue living. Think with me. If you say the wrong word, you carry the weight of regret. But if you learn to say the right word, you carry with you the peace of having done what was within your power. This is the difference between a farewell that wounds and a farewell that heals. And Jung believed that, for human beings, nothing is more important than finding meaning, even in suffering. The question that remains is, how to transform the pain of loss into learning, into something that strengthens instead of destroys. The answer lies precisely in what we have already seen, accepting death as part of life. If we do not accept it, we remain trapped. And this imprisonment manifests in phrases like, "I will never get over it," or "it was too soon." But when we accept it, we begin to see farewell as a continuity. Life does not end. It transforms into memory, into legacy, into inspiration. Perhaps you have already lost someone and know how much these words make a difference. When we remember a farewell where there was truth, we feel peace. But when we remember a farewell where there was denial, we feel pain. Jung called this integration of the shadow, bringing to consciousness what we avoid. If we avoid death, it becomes a ghost. If we integrate it, it becomes a teacher. And here is the most surprising part of this lesson. Speaking correctly to those who are leaving is also speaking to ourselves. Every time we say, "Your life had meaning" to someone, we are reminding ourselves to say that to our own story as well. Every time we say it's okay to rest, we are planting the seed so that in the future we can hear it without fear. The right words not only comfort the other, they prepare us for our own end. This means that deep down, Jung's last lesson is not about death, it is about life. It is about living in such a way that when the end comes, we do not need lies nor platitudes. It is about living in such a way that we can, with serenity, accept departure. Now I want you to imagine a scene. A simple room, perhaps lit only by a small light. An elderly person rests in their bed, surrounded by family. Some cry, others try to hide their emotion. You approach, hold their hand, and instead of saying "fight," you whisper, "I am with you." Instead of saying "you'll get better," you say, "It's okay to rest." Instead of saying "don't cry," you simply allow "you can feel." And in the end, looking into their eyes, you say, "Your life had meaning. Your time has come. I will carry you with me." Do you perceive the difference? This farewell does not generate regret. It leaves no room for guilt. It transforms the end into a dignified, almost sacred closure. And when you leave that room even carrying the pain of absence, you will also carry the certainty that you honored that moment, and that certainty will accompany you forever. Jung said that human beings only achieve true peace when they accept that they do not control everything. Death is, perhaps, the strongest reminder of this. And by accepting it, we discover an unexpected freedom, that of living fully without trying to hold on to what cannot be held. The right words are merely the practical expression of this acceptance. Perhaps now you are asking yourself, "But when it's my time, who will be by my side? What will they say to me?" This is a legitimate concern, but there is something you can do while still alive. Prepare those you love. Teach, by your own example, how to deal with farewell. Show by the way you live and talk about the subject that death is not a taboo, that it can be faced head-on with courage and serenity. This is perhaps the greatest legacy you can leave. Not just what you achieved, not just the memories you spread, but also how you face the end. Because whoever witnesses an authentic farewell carries that memory forever. It becomes a living lesson that transcends generations. And here we come to the final point of our conversation. Carl Jung's last lesson is simple but transformative. Do not flee from death, integrate it. Do not hide it with empty words, but honor it with words that liberate. Avoid the 7 that wound, and embrace the ones that heal. Because in the end, all that truly matters is allowing those who depart to do so in peace, and for those who remain to continue without regret. If this video has touched you, I ask one thing of you. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share. Not for numbers, but because this message can reach someone who at this very moment needs to hear it. Someone who may be facing a farewell and does not know what to say. You can be the channel for this transformation. And always remember, the right words don't just change death, they change life. They remind us that deep down we are not just made of flesh and bone, but of meaning. And it is this meaning that remains. Thus, when your day comes, may there be no demands, no denials, no guilt by your side, but only the simple truth of a gaze, a touch, and perhaps a few words spoken in a serene tone. I am with you. It's okay to rest. Your life had meaning. I will carry you with me. That is the last lesson.